Hiya, teacher friends. So, how much money do I make on iTalki anyway? Well, the short answer is $803 in one of my early months to $4,173 this past month. And the long answer will be revealed in this video. First of all, it's quite wild how I haven't even chatted about money on iTalki so far, despite the fact that a lot of teachers like yourselves are on YouTube looking for these tips. So I'm going to give you a month-by-month breakdown of 18 months teaching on iTalki. Get ready, you're going to hear a lot of numbers, but you're also going to hear some anecdotes because I want to explain why I made that much money at that time, okay? And in some situations, why I didn't make money at certain times. So let's get started. To start off, I am a language learning addict as well. I am an iTalki student. I've taken more than 300 classes on iTalki. For that reason, you're going to see my income actually dip in certain months. And there are two aspects here. First of all, I am paying some of my income towards taking classes in French or Spanish or whatever the language is. But on top of that, I am losing out on a potential hour or half an hour or 45 minutes that I could be teaching because I'm doing something else. So I'll be talking about that the way through. I'll also be talking about other aspects of my life that have come into play, such as studying at university. And for teachers who are also students at university, I hope that will be helpful. All right, so let's jump into it. I started on iTalki in December of 2019. Gosh, 18 months flew by. So I started off at $574.84 for that month. I was happy with this. I took a couple weeks off to celebrate Christmas and New Year's. So honestly, that was from 2 weeks of working, and at that point I was pretty content with that. I had just finished working at a university, so I just wanted to get my hands on some money, and it paid the bills. From there, I came back after Christmas break and I scored $1,848. So this is all USD, by the way, which looks even nicer in Canadian dollars. And that was for January. January is where I actually burnt out. So that's how quick it took. So I really suggest for you as a teacher to try to pace yourself and not to burn out, because I mean, my fee was so low. It was like $8 an hour for the first couple months. And I really felt bad raising it on my students who, because I just felt bad. Yeah, so I got a decent amount of money, but I think that I was working too hard. I was working about 10 hours some days, 9 hours some days, which I have worked since, but it's a lot easier when you're making more money to work those hours. At least it is for me. Yeah. So from there in February, I kind of dipped down. I went down to $1,316 in February. I gradually started raising my price, however. So I wasn't working as much or as hard, but I was earning, $500 less. So this might happen to you as well. If you start on iTalki, you should start with a very cheap rate. If you're not starting with a cheap rate, I'd say like it depends on your qualification. So I can't just throw out a number, but cheap for you, cheap for the value of your classes, whatever that may be. If you're not starting at a cheap rate, then you shouldn't be surprised if you're not getting classes and you're not getting a lot of bookings, because one of the things that students look for, they look for the numbers, right? So the first thing you want to do is get those first 50 or 100 classes in, so that your students see that this is not just a new teacher. This person is actually at least partially committed. Yeah. And again, this all depends on your goals on iTalki. I mean, for me, you're going to see it was more of a full-time job than just a part-time job in certain respects. So April of 2020, 2020, I went to $863. Yeah. So that was one of the lower ones. In May, I got just over 1,000. June, $976. Again, I was learning on iTalki probably 3 or 4 hours a day. So this took away a lot of potential time. So if we consider the fact that 300 classes learning, let's say that half of let's say that's $10 each, right? Well, if I wasn't learning at the time and I was teaching instead, probably half of those slots that I was learning, I would have been teaching, right? So let's say that could have been 150 classes, $1,500 more that I would have made over the 18 months. Yeah, so we could probably give an extra 100 to some of these months, but in any case, I was happy at the time to make 1,000. It was pretty good value for where I was living in rural Ireland. July. Okay, so now we're getting into 7 months, 8 months on iTalki. $1,443 for the month of July. August, $1,063. So September, this is when I moved back to Canada from Ireland, and I also began studying at university to take a certificate, my CTESOL certificate at Carleton University. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. So it dipped down to $803. October of this past year, $855. So this is 10 months in. Making less than $1,000 USD for the month. I mean, for some people, this isn't very good. For me, I was happy about it because I was at the same time I was studying, right? However, I think that I was working harder and not smarter. At this time, I was kind of relying on a lot of students to just book more often, and I was really becoming more of a conversational teacher than an IELTS teacher. I think I began in this spot where it was very good value for my classes, and students were like, wow, this guy has a TESOL certificate, he's a professional teacher, and he's charging $8 an hour. So tons of students were booking. When we got into the summer and the spring, I think students started booking less because my price was a little bit higher, but there was nothing to show for that I was that much more professional and there was that much more of a value for my class, aside from that little label, professional teacher. So I think this really underlines the fact that even as a professional teacher, you cannot just rely on that. It's important that you try to seek new students, that you try to seek long-term students, that you reward your students, and you develop professionally. And I think that I was rewarding my students at this time. So basically, I had students who I was giving, classes like peanuts. Like I actually gave a lot of free classes on iTalki to some of these students, which I have no regrets about. They're students I really built rapport with. However, I think that I missed out on actually developing my materials, developing my lessons, improving my strategies and my approach to lessons. So I wish I had done this 4 months in, when I was really comfortable on iTalki. It was the middle of the pandemic. I had lots of time instead of just focusing on language learning. But again, it depends what you have going on in life, right? And for me, what I had going on in life was my obsession with taking classes on iTalki, more so than just being the best teacher that I could be. So thankfully, I returned to university, and this kind of opened my mind to this. So we go into October, yeah, $855. This past November, jumped up to $1,291, and in December, $1,196. So at this point, I'm scoring about 500 a week, which is pretty nice. Still taking a lot of lessons online. Let me also tell you that throughout this time, my availability was about the same. Like throughout the whole first year, the first couple months on iTalki, I don't know why, I felt like I couldn't function in the morning. I was just that guy. So I actually began, I had availability from like 12 p.m. From noon to 8 o'clock. But after this burnout period and I kind of recuperated, I expanded my hours all the way from probably like at one point it was 6:30 a.m. all the way to 9:30 p.m. You know, you don't have to do this. I did this because I was also in university. So I had bills to pay, and let me tell you, this paid my way through school and then some. So if you're a student, a university student looking to get some extra money, you could definitely do it. You could definitely pay off your tuition on iTalki. However, it comes with professional development and developing your materials. So coming into this year, into 2021, fantastic year so far. January I made $1,565. Yeah. February $1,674. March $2,088. So that was the first time I made $2,000 in a month. Was March. So that was 14 months into iTalki. Will it take you this long? Probably not. But I think it's important to take tips from other teachers, to look online, to find good resources, to work smart and not hard. And if making money is one of your main goals, which I'm sure it is for most people on iTalki, then you could definitely do that. For me, the things that I learned in my C-TESOL program just helped me out so much. What did I do? Well, I started giving homework. I started developing actual plans. Like I have Google Docs with different topics that I will do with the students. I send that Google Doc to them with explanations, with class rules, with different policies, all in one Google Doc after the trial lesson. Yeah, so once they meet me, I send this to them and they know what they're going to be getting. They know what they're not going to be getting. I have the same for IELTS. I have the same for conversational English. Yeah, I have a kick-ass trial lesson. Yeah, I've spoken in other videos. Brush up your trial lesson if you want to keep a lot of students. Yeah, you know, and also listen to your students, because I can't lie. Sometimes less is more, and some students on iTalki just want to chat. They just want to have a conversation. So bringing all these activities, these task-based approaches and activities into your class, that can make them just have like nightmare flashbacks from school. And they don't want that. They just want conversational practice. So don't do too much. Remember to listen to your students. But I would always aim high and settle low. So for the trial lesson, I really suggest, and for the first few lessons, but really the trial lesson, plan for the trial lesson, have a standard trial lesson that you could use with most students. And then at the end of the class, they could let you know what they want and make sure you listen to that instead of assuming. All right. So then this is the good stuff. April of this year. $3,587. Yeah, so I mean, damn, I was just happy to get $2,000. I never thought I'd break that mark on iTalki, to be honest with you. I mean, of course I see these teachers with like $80 classes and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, I never expected to be that kind of teacher anyway. And I think that I am charging what I deserve. But of course I started to raise my price. And I actually attracted just waves of students suddenly. So I can't tell you that I know exactly what happened to attract all these students, but I know that I was continuously updating my profile, making it look prettier, changing my picture, changing what I offer students. So in the description on iTalki, I was also giving deals to my long-term students and giving them discounts. Yeah. And some of them were telling their friends and their family, right? So this is another thing. You know, for referrals, you could offer discounts for that as well. Yeah, from there, this past month, $4,173. And I gotta tell you, I don't want to jinx it, but it doesn't look like it's going anywhere below that. I've made $1,000 USD a week, easy for the past 6 weeks or 7 weeks. I work my ass off. I have availability from probably 7:30. I love getting up early in the morning, so 7:30 to I think 9. But do students book in the evening? Most of the time, no. And maybe there'll be one, right? And for me, just as a guy who doesn't have kids, it must be said, as a guy who doesn't have to work another job, to just walk into my office and teach a class with students who really just want someone who they could trust, who they could feel comfortable with, like that is easily worth the time, right? Some days in this past month, I've had probably 2 9-hour days, but I mean, when I was a bartender in Ireland, I had 10-hour days all the time. And honestly, even though it could be mentally taxing, I think there are a lot of things that we could do to make this easier for teachers as well, in terms of giving independent study activities, to delegating time for homework at the end of the class, right? So I'll speak more in depth about how to make $4,000 a month on iTalki. I'll talk more about that in the future, but basically where I'm at right now, in the past 5 months, 2021, on iTalki, I've been able to go from 1565 all the way up to 4173. Now, iTalki is a full-time job for me. Yeah, of course. When I was, in April or March, I was studying in university, so I was making about half that. But it goes to show that you can make $2,000 USD. Per month, you can make 500 USD per week on iTalki with enough commitment and motivation and willingness to improve and learn. All right. So I hope that we can learn together. If you have any questions for me, please throw them down in the box. I'd be happy to answer. Enjoy your time on iTalki because money isn't everything. If I didn't love this job, I wouldn't have been on iTalki for 18 months and just absolutely loving it. All right, have a good one and keep smiling.